Hey everybody, welcome back!
At 31, you're still single and childless. You're a disappointment, my father said, mocking me. So I told him, at 56, and you're still depending on my money now, that's a disappointment. By the way, from now on, I won't be paying your bills anymore. My name is Daniel. I'm 31 years old and I work as a financial analyst at a multinational corporation, earning $10,200 a month. It's an excellent salary that allows me to live comfortably and, for the last 8 years, has also completely subsidized my parents' lives. For as long as I can remember, my parents, Osvaldo and Marta, aged 56 and 54 respectively, have had an unhealthy obsession with me starting a family. When are you going to bring home a girlfriend? Do you have someone special yet? All your cousins are already married. At your age, your father already had children. Every conversation eventually devolved into my supposed failure for not having a partner or children. It didn't matter that I had graduated from university with honors. It didn't matter that I had a stable, well-paying job. It didn't matter that I was responsible, independent, and successful in my career. The only thing that mattered to them was my marital status. You're a disappointment, my father would tell me every time the topic came up. A real man has a family at your age. What are you waiting for? Are you going to get married when you're old? My mother was no better. I'm embarrassed to tell my friends that my 31-year-old son is still single, she would constantly complain. What are they going to think? That something is wrong with you? That you're not capable of getting a woman? The ironic part of all this constant criticism was that I was the sole financial support for this family so concerned with appearances. 8 years ago, when I was 23 and had just landed my first serious job earning $5,000 a month, my parents came to me with a financial crisis. My father had lost his job as a salesman, and my mother had never formally worked. It's just temporary, they told me. Just until your father finds something. And like the obedient son I was, programmed since childhood to feel I owed them everything for having raised me, I agreed to help them. I started by paying the rent for their house, about $900 a month. Then the utilities, another $300. Then food and basic expenses, about $600 more. In total, I was giving them $1,800 out of my $3,500, leaving me with just $1,700 for myself. It's temporary, I kept telling myself, but the months turned into years. My father never found that stable job, or rather, he never really looked for one. Why work when your son paid for everything? Meanwhile, they continued to criticize me. Daniel, you're too thin. No woman will want you like that. Daniel, you work too much, that's why you don't have time to find a partner. Daniel, you're too picky, that's why you're still alone. Over the years, my salary increased. At 27, I was earning $6,500 a month. At 29, $8,500. Now at 31, $10,200. And with each raise, my parents expected more from me. The rent went up to $1,200 when they moved into a bigger house because they deserved it after years of sacrifice. The utilities increased to $400, and the monthly allowance to $800. In total, I was now giving them $2,400 a month. For 8 years, I had paid religiously. That was $28,800 a year. In 8 years, I had given them $230,400, almost $250,000 to support 2 completely capable adults who had simply decided that working was no longer necessary because their son provided for them. And my reward for this constant financial sacrifice was mockery about my personal life. The truth is, I wasn't single because I was incapable of finding a partner, I was single by choice. I had been in relationships, some of them serious, but none of them worked out. And honestly, I didn't feel pressured to get married or have kids just because it was time. I enjoyed my independence, my freedom, my ability to do whatever I wanted without having to consult anyone. But to my parents, this was incomprehensible. To them, a man without a family was a failure, no matter what else he had achieved. 2 weeks ago was my cousin Valeria's birthday. She organized a large family gathering at her house, inviting aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, the whole extended family. I attended because Valeria and I had always gotten along well. I brought a generous gift and was in a good mood. The gathering was going well. Food, music, pleasant conversations. Valeria had decorated her house beautifully, and we were all enjoying ourselves until my father decided to pull his usual stunt. We were all gathered in the living room after dinner. My cousin Javier had announced that his wife was pregnant with their second child. Everyone applauded and congratulated the couple. It was a sweet, family moment. Then, my father, with that smile I knew all too well, the one that preceded a hurtful comment disguised as a joke, decided to speak up. "How lovely, Javier," he said loudly so everyone could hear. "A second child. You're going to have a beautiful family, not like my son Daniel here." The conversation stopped. Everyone looked at me. I felt my stomach tighten. "Daniel," my father continued in a mocking tone, "at 31, still single and childless. You're a disappointment. Look at him sitting there, all alone, with no one." At his age, I already had a son and was building a real family. Some people laughed uncomfortably, others looked at the floor. My mother smiled and added her own comment. "It's embarrassing, honestly. All his cousins have families now. But not Daniel. Daniel's too busy being single." More laughter. "At 31, I'm still single and childless. What a disappointment I must be to you." My father smiled, thinking I was agreeing with him. "But you know what's more disappointing?" I continued, my voice growing firmer. "At 56, you're still depending on your single, childless son's money to survive. Now that is a real disappointment." The silence that fell was absolute. My father's smile vanished. My mother turned pale. "For 8 years, I continued, now that I had started, I couldn't stop. I have paid your rent, your utilities, your food, everything. $2,400 every single month. A total of over $230,000 in these 8 years. All while you worked exactly 0 days and criticized me for not having the life you wanted me to have." "Daniel, this isn't," my father began, but I cut him off. "No, let me finish," I said with a firmness I had never used with them before. "You've spent years telling me I'm a disappointment, that a real man has a family. But a real man also works to support his family. A real man doesn't live like a parasite off his son's money while publicly humiliating him." My Aunt Rosa gasped. My cousin Javier was staring at me with wide eyes. The entire family was in absolute shock. "And Mom," I turned to her, "you're embarrassed to tell your friends your son is single? Do you also tell them that this single son completely supports you? Do you tell them you haven't worked a single day in the last 8 years because your son pays for everything?" My mother started to cry. "It's not fair for you to say that in front of everyone." "Not fair?" I repeated in disbelief. "But it was fair for you to humiliate me in front of everyone 2 minutes ago. It was fair for you to call me embarrassing, son." "We were just joking," my father tried, his voice weak. "You weren't joking," I said. "You've been humiliating me for years about my personal life while I paid every bill you had. But that's over now." "What do you mean?" my mother asked, her voice trembling. "I mean," I said with absolute clarity, "that from this moment on, I will no longer be paying your bills. The rent payments are done. The utility payments are done. The monthly allowance is done. It's all over." "You can't do that," my father shouted, getting to his feet. "We're your parents. We raised you. And I've paid you back for that for 8 years, I said without losing my composure. "More than paid you back. Now get jobs and support yourselves like any responsible adult should." "You're ungrateful," my mother cried. "After everything we did for you. What you did for me was your choice as parents, I said. It doesn't create an eternal debt where I have to support you while you do nothing and constantly criticize me. That debt, if it ever existed, is now paid in full. Daniel, please, my father changed tactics, now pleading. Don't do this. Not in front of the family. We can talk in private. No, I said firmly. You decided to humiliate me in front of the family, so the family can hear my response. I am no longer your source of income. Get jobs. Live within your means. Take responsibility for your own lives. And we're supposed to live on the street? My mother asked dramatically. Live wherever you can afford with your own money, I said. Like I do. Like all these adults in this room do. It is not my responsibility to support you forever. But we don't have any money, my father shouted, finally admitting the truth in front of everyone. Then work, I said with brutal simplicity. You're 56 and 54. You're not that old. Millions of people that age work. You can too. My uncle Ernesto, who had mocked me earlier, now had the decency to look uncomfortable. Daniel, maybe you're being too harsh, he tried to mediate. Harsh? I looked at him. Uncle, I have paid over $230,000 in 8 years to support my parents while they didn't work and constantly criticized me. Does that seem soft to you? How much have you spent supporting capable adults who refuse to work? He had no answer. I turned to my parents one last time. This conversation is over. I'm not going to argue anymore. My decision is final. As of today, you pay your own bills. And I walked out of Valeria's house, leaving the entire family in stunned silence. Behind me, I heard my mother crying and my father trying to explain, to justify, to do damage control, but it was no longer my problem. The following days were a bombardment of calls and messages. My father tried to reason, then threaten, then plead. My mother alternated between tears and insults. I ignored it all. A week after the incident, my uncle Roberto called me. Daniel, your parents are desperate, he said. They don't have money for this month's rent. They're going to be evicted. Then they should look for a job or a cheaper place, I said without emotion. You're so cold, my uncle judged. I'm being realistic, I corrected. They created this situation by not working for years and by constantly humiliating me. Now they're facing the consequences. 3 weeks after I cut off the funding, I received a message from my cousin Valeria. Daniel, your parents were evicted, she informed me. They're living in their car. Your mom says to please call her. I didn't call. I blocked both of their numbers after receiving the 100th message begging for help. A month later, through my Aunt Rosa, who still spoke to me, I found out that they had both gotten jobs. My father was working as a packer at a supermarket, earning minimum wage. My mother had found a job at a laundry. Between the two of them, they earned enough to rent a room in a shared house with a common bathroom. They're suffering a lot, my aunt told me in a reproachful tone. Don't you care? They're learning to stand on their own 2 feet, I replied. That's not suffering, that's growth. You're very hard on them, she insisted. They were hard on me for years, I said. The difference is that my harshness comes with fair consequences for their actions. Theirs came for no reason other than gratuitous cruelty. The months passed. The calls eventually ceased, the messages stopped. Through occasional family gossip, I heard about how they were working, living modestly, and apparently adapting to having to support themselves for the first time in 8 years. 6 months after the incident at Valeria's birthday, I received a letter. It was from my mother, handwritten on cheap paper. Dear Daniel, it began. Your father and I want you to know that we finally understand. We understand that we abused your generosity for years. We understand that we treated you unfairly, criticizing you for personal decisions that were none of our business while we depended on you financially. We understand that we were hypocrites. We're not asking you to forgive us yet because we know we don't deserve it. We just want you to know that we are working, supporting ourselves, and learning to live within our means. And for the first time in years, even though it's hard, we feel a sense of dignity in earning our own money. Maybe someday we can have a relationship again, one based on mutual respect and not dependence. But if you decide you don't want that, we will understand. We love you, even though we didn't show it well. Mom and Dad. I read the letter 3 times. I felt something stir in my chest, something that had been frozen for months. It wasn't complete forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. I didn't reply to the letter immediately. I needed time to process, but I kept it in a drawer. I didn't throw it away. Today, a year after that birthday that changed everything, I live peacefully in my apartment. The money I used to spend on supporting my parents, I now use for myself. I've traveled, I've invested, I've enjoyed my life without the constant burden of supporting 2 adults who refuse to work. Am I still single? Yes. Does it bother me? No. I'm currently dating someone, but with no rush, no pressure. If it works out, it works out. If not, that's fine too. Do I miss my parents? Sometimes. I miss the idea of having parents who would support and love me unconditionally. But that idea was never real. It was just a fantasy. Do I regret cutting off the funding so drastically? No. It was the best thing I could have done, both for myself and, ironically, for them. Now they have the dignity of supporting themselves. Now they know they can survive without depending on their son. Maybe someday we'll rebuild a relationship, but it will be different, on my terms, with clear boundaries and mutual respect. Or maybe we won't, and that's okay too. Because I learned something invaluable that day at Valeria's birthday, when I finally stopped silently enduring humiliation. I learned that self-respect is worth more than keeping the family peace. I learned that raising a child does not create an infinite debt that must be repaid with decades of financial sacrifice. I learned that you can love your parents and still need to distance yourself from them to preserve your own mental and financial health. And most importantly, I learned that being alone is not a disappointment. The real disappointment is living your life trying to please people who will never be satisfied, who will always find something new to criticize no matter how much you sacrifice for them. I am free now. Free from the financial burden of supporting 2 capable adults. Free from the emotional burden of their constant criticism. Free from feeling like I owe something for having been raised. My money is my own, my life is my own, my decisions are my own. And if that makes me a disappointment in the eyes of those who criticized me while living off my generosity, then I am perfectly happy being a disappointment. Because finally, after 31 years of seeking approval that never came, I learned to approve of myself. And that self-approval, that inner peace, that freedom to live on my own terms without carrying the weight of supporting those who don't respect me, is worth infinitely more than any amount of money or any illusion of a perfect family. Update 5 months after I wrote my story, my parents contacted me again. This time, they waited for me outside of my work and asked for my forgiveness in person. It wasn't a message, it wasn't a call, it wasn't a letter. It was in person, standing on the sidewalk, nervous, uncomfortable, and clearly exhausted by the life they had been living since I stopped financing everything for them. My mother's eyes were red, I don't know if it was from crying or from exhaustion. My father looked smaller, less arrogant, as if the last few months had knocked the wind out of him that he had in abundance when he was publicly humiliating me. They asked to speak for just a few minutes. I agreed. What happened next, I did not expect. There were no excuses, no justifications, none of the typical, but you also. Just an apology. A real, unadorned, non-manipulative, drama-free apology. My father admitted that he had been cruel, unfair, and arrogant. He said that the humiliation he suffered in front of the family that day didn't compare to the years he had humiliated me. My mother confessed that she never imagined how much her comments had hurt me and how much they had abused my generosity. They both acknowledged that living on a bare minimum, depending only on their own efforts, had opened their eyes, that never in their lives had they valued how difficult it was to cover expenses, manage a salary, and live with limits. They didn't ask me for money back, or to support them again, or to solve their problems. They only asked for a chance to rebuild the relationship. And I, after months of distance, reflection, and peace of mind, accepted not for them, but for myself. Over the following 5 months, we have taken small but firm steps. We see each other once every 2 weeks, usually for coffee or lunch at a simple place. We don't talk about the past unless they bring it up first, and when they do, it's from a place of responsibility, not victimhood. And most importantly of all, they have never again asked me for money, not a single cent. I don't finance their lives. They don't control mine. And from this newfound balance, it's only now that we're starting to truly get to know each other. Subscribe for more daily stories. Stories.
These are some funny beauty fails that prove beauty. Pain. You must suffer to be beautiful.
Or maybe you're just born with it, in which case just
I woke up like this.
you're a shark puppet, okay?
Excuses. You're ugly.
I got me a BBL off Amazon, and you know, just for giggies, like just for gigs or whatever. It's looking like an egg. It's very much vacuum packed and sealed, so we're gonna open her up. She is from China, beautiful, gorgeous, foreign, exotic, thick queen. Okay, so, okay, so it comes with 2 little pads, little pooty pads, and then it comes with some shorts. So we're gonna try her on. Hold on.
Wait!
I found
Whoa.
you, Miss New Booty.
Whoa.
Get it together. Bring it back to me. What the? God knew I would just be way too powerful. Who is? What the hell is that? What the? You're freaking kidding me. I would just be too powerful. I would just be. What?
Oh, wow.
Are you out here freaking looking like a shelf? Oh man.
Oh, that is
God would put me like this,
tempting.
it just would have been too much. It just would have been too much. What the? Look like a donkey. Looking like a donkey. I can knock people out with this thing, okay? What the hell? I would be way more obnoxious than I am now if I had all of this.
Nobody
okay?
could talk to me if I had like that.
God just knew what he was. Shut the. Shut up! I just wouldn't know how to act. I simply would not know how to act, okay? And I fully believe that my creator knew what he was doing. He had a humble mind somehow, because